Welcome to the long road. Tonight, we walk through Venice on the final night of Carnival. Settle in, close your eyes, and let your breathing slow. There is nowhere else you need to be. It is February 1750, the last night of Carnival, Shrove Tuesday, what the Venetians call Martedì Grasso. Tomorrow, Lent begins and the masks come off. But tonight, the city belongs to everyone and no one. You live in Dorsoduro, in a modest apartment near Campo Santa Margherita, and you're walking to Piazza San Marco for the final hours. If you enjoy these walks, like and subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Now, let us begin. The evening bells are sounding across the rooftops, and the fog is rising from the canals. The bells of Santa Maria dei Carmini begin to ring. They come through the closed shutters of your apartment, through the thick walls of the palazzo, deep and steady. You have been listening for them. It is the signal that evening has truly begun, that the last hours of Carnival are underway. You rise from the chair by the window and cross the room to the wooden chest where the mask is waiting. The bauta is the mask of anonymity. It has 3 parts. The white mask itself, made of papier-mâché, covers the upper face and nose. Its chin juts forward away from the mouth so that you can eat and drink and speak without removing it. The black silk cloak, called the tabara, drapes over your shoulders and chest, and the black tricorn hat sits above it all. Together they erase you. No one can tell if you are rich or poor, man or woman, nobleman or fishmonger. You lift the mask from the chest. It is cool and smooth against your fingertips, lighter than you expect. The inside is lined with a thin layer of linen to soften it against the skin. You have worn it many times before. Every Venetian has. Carnival has been running since January 7th, and before that, masks were permitted from October through Christmas. For nearly half the year, the city walks behind these white faces. You press the mask to your face. The papier-mâché is cold against your cheeks, your forehead. Your breath comes back warm against your chin. The world narrows to 2 eye holes, trimmed with shadow. You drape the tabaro over your shoulders and settle the tricorn on your head. In the small mirror by the door, a stranger looks back at you. That is the whole point. You take the iron key from the hook by the door and step out onto the landing. The staircase is narrow and dark, worn smooth by centuries of feet. The palazzo is old, built in the Venetian Gothic style, with pointed arches and quatrefoiled tracery on the upper floors. But here, on the interior stairs, there is only stone and shadow. You descend slowly, one hand on the cool wall. The front door opens onto the fondamenta, the stone quayside that runs along the canal. The air hits you at once. It is cold, damp, carrying the mineral smell of the lagoon and something else beneath it. The faint salt rot of low tide. A thin fog hangs just above the water, blurring the reflections of the buildings opposite. The canal is dark and still. Somewhere to your left, a gondola passes, its lantern a smudge of gold in the mist. The bells of Carmini are still ringing, and now they are answered. From the south, the deeper voice of the Gesuati. From the east, Santa Maria della Salute, that great domed church at the tip of Dorsoduro, and far away, barely audible, the bells of San Marco itself, drifting across the water. They layer over one another, not quite in time, creating a slow wash of bronze sound that fills the evening air. You turn right along the fondamenta and begin to walk. Your footsteps sound different behind the mask. Everything sounds different. Your breathing is closer, more present. The world beyond the eye holes feels both distant and vivid, as though you are watching a painting come to life. The fog softens every edge. The buildings across the canal are gray and gold, their windows lit with candles and oil lamps. A cat sits on a mooring post, watching you pass. It is lean and gray, with pale eyes that catch the lamplight. Cats are everywhere in Venice, slipping through the calle, sleeping on the warm stones of the campos, keeping the rats from the grain stores. This one regards you without interest. You are just another mask moving through the evening. The fondamenta turns and you leave the canal behind. A narrow call leads north toward Campo Santa Margherita. The walls close in on either side, brick and plaster, barely wide enough for two people to pass. A sottoportego appears ahead, one of the covered passages that tunnel through the ground floors of buildings. The ceiling is low, vaulted damp. Your footsteps echo briefly, and then you emerge into open air again. The call narrows further. The walls on either side are close enough to touch with both hands if you stretched out your arms. The plaster is crumbling in places, revealing the old brick beneath, orange and rust red, laid in uneven rows by hands that have been dust for centuries. Moisture beads on the surface, catching the faint light from a window high above. The cold presses in from the stone, a slow, patient cold that seeps through your tabaro and settles against your skin. Your breath curls upward through the mask, a thin ghost that dissolves into the fog before it rises past the roofline. Campo Santa Margherita opens before you. It is the heart of Dorsoduro, a long, irregular campo that serves as the neighborhood's gathering place. Tonight it is alive. Torches burn in iron brackets on the walls. Lanterns hang from ropes strung between buildings, casting pools of amber light that sway gently in the breeze. The fog catches the light and holds it so that the whole campo seems to glow from within. Dozens of masked figures move through the space. Most wear the bauta, like you. White faces drifting through the torchlight, identical, anonymous. But there are other masks too. A long-nosed plague doctor, the medico della peste, its beak stuffed with dried lavender. A bright-cheeked colombina, half-mask trimmed with feathers. A full-faced moretta, held in place by a button clenched between the wearer's teeth, making them silent by design. In the center of the campo, a small group of musicians has gathered. 2 violins, a viola, and a cello. They are playing something by Vivaldi, who died 9 years ago in Vienna. Poor and nearly forgotten, but his music lives on in Venice. The melody is slow and sweet, a largo perhaps, and it drifts across the campo like smoke. You pause to listen. The notes rise and fall, patient and unhurried. The players wear no masks. Musicians are exempt tonight so that they can play without obstruction. Their faces are the only bare ones in the campo, lit by a single lantern at their feet. The cellist's bow moves in long, slow strokes, drawing out each note until it dissolves into the fog. You stand and listen, breathing slowly, letting the music settle into your chest. A vendor passes with a tray of frittole, the fried dough balls dusted with sugar that are eaten only during Carnival. The smell is warm and sweet, cutting through the cold air. You could reach out and take one without removing your mask. That is the genius of the bauta's jutting chin. It holds the face away from the mouth, leaving you free to eat, to drink, to speak. The mask conceals without constraining. You leave the campo by its southern edge, passing the old church of Santa Margherita, which has not been used for worship in years. Its bell tower still stands, but the building itself has been given over to storage. Venice is full of these quiet transformations. Churches become warehouses. Warehouses become churches. The city reshapes itself constantly, like water finding new channels. The call narrows again. The buildings lean toward each other overhead, almost touching. A window box on the second floor holds a pot of rosemary, its dark green needles beaded with moisture from the fog. Below it, a small shrine to the Madonna is set into the wall. A painted ceramic figure behind glass, with a candle flickering at her feet. These shrines appear on almost every corner, small points of devotion in the labyrinth. You can hear water ahead. Not the still water of a canal, but the slap and gurgle of a canal meeting a bridge. You emerge onto a fondamenta, and there it is. Ponte dei Pugni, the Bridge of Fists. It is a simple stone bridge, an arch over a narrow canal near Campo San Barnaba. It has no railings, like most Venetian bridges in this century. What makes it remarkable are the marble footprints set into the paving at the crown of the arch. 4 pairs of feet, 2 on each side, facing each other. They mark where the fighters once stood. For centuries, the rival factions of Venice, the Nicolati from the west and the Castellani from the east, met on this bridge to fight, not with weapons, but with fists. Hundreds of men would line the canal banks cheering, while fighters tried to push each other off the bridge and into the water below. The battles were fierce enough that men sometimes drowned. The government banned them 45 years ago in 1705, but the footprints remain. You cross the bridge slowly. The stone is worn smooth, slightly damp. Your fingers trail along the low parapet where there is one, and then there is only open air on either side. Below, the canal is black and still. A gondola is moored to a striped post, its ferro, the iron prow ornament, catching a sliver of lantern light. The 6 teeth of the ferro represent the Sestieri of Venice. The single tooth facing backward represents the island of Giudecca. On the far side of the bridge, Campo San Barnaba opens to your right. The church of San Barnaba faces the canal, its plain brick facade softened by the fog. A greengrocer's barge is tied up at the quayside, though it is closed for the night. During the day, it sells vegetables brought in from the islands of the lagoon, artichokes from San Trovaso, radicchio from Treviso. But now the barge sits dark and empty, rocking gently on the water. You continue south along the Fondamenta. The crowd's thin here, between the campos. The fog is thicker near the water, rising in slow curls from the canal surface. Your footsteps are the only sound for a moment, steady on the stone. Then, from somewhere above, a harpsichord begins to play. The notes fall from an upper window, precise and delicate, a piece you half recognize but cannot name. It might be Scarlatti, it might be Galuppi, it does not matter. The music follows you as you walk, growing fainter with each step, until it is replaced by the sound of your own breathing inside the mask. The warm air pools against your chin. The linen lining is soft against your forehead. You have forgotten you are wearing it, almost. That is what happens with the bauta. After a while, the mask becomes your face. The anonymity becomes natural. You are no one in particular walking through the fog. A sodaportego swallows you briefly. A dark tunnel smelling of damp stone and old wood. Water drips somewhere nearby, a slow, irregular rhythm. Then you emerge and the air changes. There is a new smell now, sharp and resinous. Timber, hot pitch, wood shavings. You have reached the Square. The Square di San Trovaso is one of the last gondola workshops in Venice. It sits on a small canal, its wooden building tilted forward like an alpine chalet, looking nothing like the stone palazzi around it. The builders who work here came originally from the Dolomite Mountains, and they built their workshop in the style of their homeland. Even after centuries, it still looks like a mountain cabin dropped into the middle of a lagoon city. The workshop is closed for the night, but the smells linger. The sweet, dusty scent of oak and larch shavings, the sharp tang of heated pitch used to seal the hulls, the oiliness of linseed rubbed into the wood to protect it from the salt water. A half-finished gondola hull sits on the slipway, its dark ribs exposed like the skeleton of some elegant sea creature. There are perhaps 8,000 gondolas in Venice. Some say closer to 10,000. Every one is painted black, as the sumptuary laws have required since 1562, when the Senate grew tired of nobles competing to have the most extravagantly decorated boats. Before that, gondolas were gilded, painted in bright colors, draped with silk. Now they are uniformly dark, sleek, and identical. Another form of anonymity on the water. You leave the square behind and continue south. The call opens suddenly and the space before you widens dramatically. You have reached the Zattere, the broad fondamenta that runs along the southern edge of Dorsoduro, facing the wide Giudecca Canal. The openness is startling after the narrow streets. The sky appears above you, gray and low, and the water stretches out wide and dark, dotted with the lanterns of passing boats. The wind is stronger here, coming off the water. It carries the cold breath of the Adriatic, the faint smell of open sea beyond the lagoon. Your tabaro flutters against your legs. You pull it tighter around your shoulders. The fog is thinner on this exposed stretch, torn apart by the breeze, and you can see across the canal to the island of Giudecca. Its long, low profile is marked by the lights of churches and convents, reflected brokenly in the moving water. To your right, the Church of Santa Maria del Rosario rises, known to everyone as the Gesuati. It was completed just 15 years ago, its white Istrian stone facade still clean and sharp. Inside, the ceiling holds a painting by Giambattista Tiepolo, finished just 2 years ago. The Institution of the Rosary, it is called. You have seen it on a quiet afternoon, lying on your back on a pew, gazing up at the swirling clouds and saints and angels painted in Tiepolo's pale, luminous colors. But tonight, you do not go inside. You walk along the Zattere, feeling the wind on the exposed strip of skin between your mask and your collar. Seagulls sit on the mooring posts, white shapes in the gloom, watching the water with their pale eyes. They do not move as you pass. They are accustomed to people, to the endless traffic of this waterfront. The Zattere takes its name from the timber rafts, the Zattere, that once moored here carrying wood down from the mountains to supply the city's shipyards and construction sites. Venice is built on timber piles driven deep into the lagoon mud, millions of them, and the demand for wood was constant. Entire forests in the Dolomites were felled and floated down rivers to the sea, then across the lagoon to this very quayside. A brazier burns on the fondamenta ahead, tended by a vendor selling mulled wine. The coals glow orange, and you can smell dried orange peel burning among them, releasing a sweet, citrus fragrance that mixes with the salt air. A few masked figures stand around the warmth, holding small clay cups. No one speaks. They simply stand, warming their hands, watching the canal. The orange peel crackles softly in the cold. You pause beside the brazier. The warmth reaches your hands, your face through the mask. The mulled wine smells of cinnamon and cloves, of honey and dark red grape. You could stay here for a long time, watching the boats move across the dark water, feeling the heat on your fingers, but Piazza San Marco is waiting, and the night is not infinite. Midnight will come whether you walk toward it or not. You leave the Zattere and turn north, into the maze of Colli that will lead you to the Grand Canal. The streets narrow immediately. The wind disappears. The fog returns, close and intimate, softening the lantern light to golden halos on the walls. Your footsteps echo between the buildings, a steady rhythm on the stone. Left, then right, then through another sottoportico, then left again. Navigation in Venice is an act of faith. You trust your feet to know the way. A pair of masked figures passes you going the other way, arm in arm, their white faces turning briefly toward yours. Behind the masks, you cannot tell if they are old or young, Venetian or foreign. The bauta erases all distinction. A senator and a servant might walk side by side tonight, and no one would know the difference. That is the promise of Carnival. For these last hours, Venice is a city without rank. Carnival has been running since the 7th of January this year. Some years it begins even earlier. And masks are permitted again from October through Christmas. Altogether, Venetians spend nearly half the year behind disguises. The government tolerates it, even encourages it, because anonymity keeps the peace. When no one knows who you are, grudges are harder to pursue, scandals easier to forget. The mask is not just a costume, it is a tool of governance. You emerge from the Cali onto a small fondamenta at the edge of the Grand Canal. The water is wide here, much wider than the narrow channels you have been following. The Grand Canal curves through Venice in a great reversed S, dividing the city into two unequal halves. There is only one bridge across it, the Rialto, far to the north. To cross here, you must take the traghetto. The traghetto station is a simple wooden platform at the water's edge, with a small shelter against the rain. A gondola waits, longer and broader than the private ones, designed to carry passengers standing up. The traghetto gondoliers work in pairs, one at the bow and one at the stern, ferrying people back and forth across the canal all day and into the evening. The fare is a single coin, the same for everyone. You step aboard and find a place among the other passengers. There are perhaps a dozen of you, all standing, all masked. The gondola rocks gently as each new person steps on. The water laps against the hull with a soft, hollow sound. No one speaks. You are a boat full of strangers, anonymous in your white masks and black cloaks, crossing the dark water together. The gondolier at the stern pushes off with a long oar, and the boat slides forward into the canal. The oar sits in the forcola, the carved wooden oarlock, and each stroke produces a deep, rhythmic groan of wood against wood. It is a sound as characteristic of Venice as the bells. Push, glide, push, glide. The water parts ahead of the bow with barely a ripple. From the middle of the canal, the city looks different. The fondamente on either side are low, dark lines, interrupted by the glowing rectangles of windows. You can see the shapes of bridges in the distance, their arches doubled by reflections, forming dark ovals that float in the blackness. A torch on a mooring pole sends a column of orange light straight down into the water, and the canal holds it there, trembling, as though the city has a second self beneath the surface, made entirely of light and movement. The air is colder out here, away from the sheltering walls. It smells of salt and wet wood and the deep green breath of the lagoon. The Grand Canal is busy tonight. Gondolas move in both directions, their lanterns creating trails of reflected light on the black water. A larger boat passes, a piazza carrying musicians, their instruments glinting as they play. The sound reaches you across the water, a dance tune, bright and quick, growing louder and then fading as the boat slips past. Laughter follows it, carried on the damp air. Then silence returns and the rhythmic creak of your gondolier's oar. On either side of the canal, the great palazzi of Venice line the water's edge. Their facades are lit from within, every window glowing. These are the houses of the patrician families, the names inscribed in the Libro d'Oro, the Golden Book. Mocenigo, Contarini, Foscari, Grimani. Their palazzi are among the most beautiful buildings in the world, 4 and 5 stories of Venetian Gothic arches, carved stone balconies, and windows that reflect the water's trembling light. Through those windows you can catch glimpses of the parties within. Chandeliers of Murano glass, their candles multiplied in dozens of mirrors. Figures in elaborate costumes, masks more ornate than the simple bauta, covered in feathers and jewels and gold leaf. In one palazzo, a string quartet plays on a balcony above the water, their music floating down like something weightless. In another, you can hear the clink of glasses and the murmur of conversation. Somewhere in this city tonight, the Ridotto is open. The state-run gambling house has operated since 1638, in a wing of the Palazzo Dandolo near San Moise. Only nobles may run the tables, but anyone in a mask may play. Fortunes are won and lost there every night of Carnival. The stakes are enormous. The atmosphere, they say, is one of perfect, eerie silence, broken only by the click of cards and the rattle of dice. And somewhere in the city, a young man of 25 named Giacomo Casanova is loose in the streets. He has been back in Venice for only a few years, and already his reputation precedes him. adventurer, gambler, conversationalist. He might be at the Ridotto tonight, or at a private party, or simply walking the calle like you, anonymous behind his bauta, looking for whatever the evening might offer. In Venice, on Carnival night, anyone might be anyone. The traghetto reaches the far side of the canal. The bow gondolier steadies the boat against the landing stage with a practiced push of his oar. You step off onto the fondamenta, one foot and then the other, feeling the solid stone after the gentle rocking of the water. The other passengers disperse into the calle, white masks vanishing into the fog like ghosts dissolving at dawn. You are in the sestiere of San Marco now, the center of the city, the seat of power. The streets are narrower here, the buildings taller, the stone smoother and more finely dressed. Everything feels denser, more concentrated. The air itself seems different, charged with the energy of 1,000 years of accumulated importance. This is where the Doge lives, where the Senate meets, where the fate of the Republic has been decided for centuries. But Venice is declining, and everyone knows it. The great trading empire that once controlled the eastern Mediterranean has been shrinking for 2 centuries. The discovery of the sea route to India around Africa shifted the spice trade to Lisbon and Amsterdam. The navy that once defeated the Ottomans at Lepanto is a shadow of itself. The arsenal, the vast shipyard that could build a galley in a single day, sits half empty. Venice is living on beauty and memory. None of this matters tonight. Tonight, the city is alive, and the beauty is real, and the memory is thick enough to walk through. You enter a call so narrow that you could touch both walls by stretching out your arms. The paving stones are smooth and slightly uneven. A lantern burns in a wall bracket ahead, its flame steady in the windless passage. The light paints the walls in shades of amber and shadow. Moss grows on the lower stones of the buildings, where the damp never fully dries. It is soft and dark green, almost black in the lamplight. The bricks above are that particular Venetian color, somewhere between terracotta and faded rose, stained with centuries of salt and moisture. Behind these facades, the buildings are timber-framed and sit on foundations of wooden piles driven deep into the lagoon mud. The whole city floats on a forest turned upside down. The call turns, and turns again. You pass a small campo, barely more than a widening of the street, with a single well at its center, its bronze cap green with age. A cat crosses the open space, lean and black, moving with the quiet purpose that cats always have. It slips between 2 masked figures without breaking stride and disappears into the darkness of a sottoportego. The masked figures do not notice. They are deep in whispered conversation, their white faces close together. The streets are filling as you move deeper into San Marco. More masks appear at every turning. The sound of voices grows, a low murmur that builds as the calle converge. You can feel the city funneling you toward the piazza, the way all of Venice's streets eventually funnel toward San Marco. The signs painted on the walls at every corner say the same thing. Per San Marco. To San Marco. Everything leads there. A group of masked revelers passes you, 6 or 7 of them moving quickly, laughing behind their bautas. One carries a bottle of wine held high. Another has a handful of dried flowers, throwing petals into the air. The petals catch the lantern light as they fall, small bright fragments drifting down through the fog. They settle on the paving stones and are trampled by the feet that follow. You can smell perfume now, mixing with the candle smoke and the damp stone. Someone nearby is wearing ambergris, that deep, warm animal scent that the wealthy favor. It drifts through the cold air and disappears. Then another smell replaces it. Roasting chestnuts from a street vendor, the shells splitting in the heat, releasing their sweet, starchy fragrance. The vendor stands at a corner, his brazier glowing, his face bare and glistening with sweat. He calls out his price to the passing masks. The call opens into Campo Santo Stefano, one of the largest campos in this part of the city. It is a long, elegant space, flanked by palazzi and the tall brick church of Santo Stefano, whose bell tower leans noticeably to one side. The campo is crowded tonight. Torches and lanterns ring the edges, and in the center, a temporary wooden stage has been erected. On the stage, an orchestra is playing. 15 or 20 musicians, violins and violas and cellos and a harpsichord, filling the campo with music that rises above the noise of the crowd. They are playing a concerto, bright and energetic, the kind of music that Venice is famous for. The orphanage girls of the Ospedale della Pietà, trained by Vivaldi himself before his death, are the most celebrated musicians in Europe. Tonight, the tradition continues. Before the stage, masked figures are dancing. Not the formal dances of the ballroom, but something looser, more spontaneous. Couples turn and sway, their cloaks swirling. Some dance alone, lost in the music, their white masks tilted upward toward the fog-softened sky. The torchlight catches the movement, casting long shadows that stretch and contract across the campo's stone floor. You stand at the edge of the campo and watch. The music is warm and complex, layers of melody weaving together. The first violins carry the main theme, a rising line that seems to lift the fog itself. Beneath it, the lower strings provide a gentle rocking motion like water. The harpsichord fills the gaps with bright, quick runs of notes. It is beautiful. You let it wash over you, standing still among the moving crowd. Carlo Goldoni is reshaping the theater of Venice this very year. He has been writing plays that replace the improvised comedy of the Commedia dell'arte with scripted dialogue, real characters, recognizable situations. The old guard resists him. They prefer the masks of Pantalone and Arlecchino, the set pieces, the Lazzi. But Goldoni sees something new. He sees Venice as it is, not as a stage routine. The city is changing, even as it clings to tradition. You leave Campo Santo Stefano by its northern end, passing beneath another sottoportego. The crowd thickens. Bodies press closer in the narrow hall, shoulders brushing, cloaks tangling. The air is warmer here, heated by the density of people, heavy with breath and perfume and candle smoke. You move with the flow, carried along like a leaf on a slow current. There is no need to navigate. The crowd knows where it is going. Through a gap between buildings, you catch a glimpse of a canal. A gondola slides past, silent except for the creak of the oar. Its passenger sits beneath the fills, the small cabin in the center of the boat, hidden behind black curtains. The gondolier stands at the stern, a dark silhouette against the fog, his oar moving in that long, practiced sweep. For a moment, the gondola's lantern illuminates the water beneath it, and you can see the green weed waving on the submerged steps of a palazzo entrance. The call turns again, and you can feel the space opening ahead. The buildings pull apart. The crowd spreads. A different quality of light reaches you, brighter, more diffuse, as though the fog itself is glowing. You can hear drums now, and the distant crack of fireworks, and beneath it all, the deep, continuous murmur of a very large crowd. You're close. One more sottoportego, darker than the others, the ceiling so low you could touch it, and then you step through, and the world opens. Piazza San Marco. The space is enormous after the constriction of the Cali. The piazza stretches before you, longer than it is wide, enclosed on three sides by the continuous arcade of the Procuratie, the administrative buildings of the Republic. The fourth side, the eastern end, is dominated by the Basilica di San Marco, its 5 domes rising into the fog like the crowns of some vast sleeping creature. 1,000 torches burn around the edges of the piazza, mounted in iron brackets on the arcade columns. Their light reflects off the wet paving stones, creating a second piazza of trembling flame beneath your feet. The fog catches the light and diffuses it, so that the whole vast space glows with a warm, golden haze. It is like standing inside a lantern. The crowd fills the piazza from end to end. Hundreds of masks, thousands of masks, white faces turning in the torchlight. The bauta is the most common, but every type of mask is here. Plague doctors with their long beaks, full-face larva masks, white and ghostly, half masks trimmed with gold and silver, elaborate fantasies of feathers and silk and painted papier-mâché. The piazza is a sea of faces that are not faces, identities dissolved in the warm fog. The basilica rises at the far end, its facade covered in gold mosaics that catch the torchlight and throw it back in fragments. The mosaics tell stories from the Bible and the history of Venice, but in this light, the details blur into a general impression of gold, of warmth, of age. The basilica is over 700 years old, built and rebuilt and decorated across the centuries. Its style is Byzantine, brought back from the East by merchants and crusaders. You stand still and let your eyes rest on the gold. The mosaics are made of tesserae, tiny cubes of glass and stone, each one set at a slightly different angle so that the surface is never flat, never uniform. The light catches each tessera differently, and the whole facade shimmers and shifts as the torches gutter in the breeze. There are figures in the gold, saints and angels and winged lions. The Virgin, hands raised, surrounded by a sky of 10,000 fragments of blue and gold. From here, the tesserae dissolve into something luminous, something that seems to glow from within, as though the wall itself were a source of light rather than a surface that merely reflects it. Above the main entrance, 4 bronze horses stand in a row. They were taken from Constantinople during the Fourth Crusade more than 500 years ago. Before that, they stood in the Hippodrome. Before that, perhaps in Rome or perhaps in Greece. No one is entirely sure how old they are. They have watched over this piazza for 5 centuries, and tonight, from their high position, they look down on the sea of masks with bronze indifference. To the right of the basilica, the campanile rises. The bell tower is the tallest structure in Venice, a simple square shaft of brick topped with a pyramidal spire. Tonight, its upper reaches are lost in the fog. It appears to rise without ending, dissolving into the gray sky. The great bell at the top, the Marangona, will ring at midnight. That is the bell you are waiting for. You walk slowly into the piazza, moving through the crowd. The paving stones are smooth and damp beneath your feet. The noise surrounds you but does not overwhelm. Conversations, laughter, music from several directions at once, the distant pop and hiss of fireworks over the water. It all blends into a single texture of sound, rich and warm, like a heavy fabric wrapping around you. Along the arcade to your left, the arches create a covered walkway. Behind the columns, the shops and cafes of the Procuratie glow with candlelight. You can see masked figures moving behind the glass, seated at small tables, drinking from porcelain cups. This is where the fashionable life of Venice unfolds, under these arches, in these rooms, watched over by the basilica and the bell tower and the bronze horses. You make your way toward one of these cafes, Café Florian. It opened 30 years ago in 1720 under the name Alla Venezia Trionfante, to triumphant Venice. Its founder, Floriano Francesconi, gave it the name everyone actually uses. It was the first cafe in Venice to admit women, and it quickly became the place where all of Venice gathered to drink chocolate and coffee and discuss the news of the day. You step under the arcade and push open the door. The interior is small and warm, divided into several rooms, each lined with mirrors that multiply the candlelight until the space seems to extend in every direction. The mirrors are framed in dark wood, the walls painted with pastoral scenes. Small marble top tables are arranged close together, and at each one, masked figures sit with their cups and their secrets. You find an empty table in the corner and sit down. The chair is wooden, with a velvet cushion worn thin by years of use. A waiter appears, unmasked, in a white apron. You order a cup of chocolate. It arrives in a small porcelain cup, thick and dark and fragrant. You lift the cup beneath the jutting chin of your bauta and drink. The chocolate is rich and slightly bitter, sweetened with sugar, flavored with a hint of cinnamon. It warms you from the inside out. The room is small enough that the warmth gathers and holds. The candle flames are perfectly still in the enclosed air, and their reflections in the mirrors create the illusion of a room that extends far beyond its walls, an infinite series of small, warm chambers receding into the glass. The marble tabletop is cool and smooth beneath your fingertips. Somewhere in the next room, a woman laughs quietly, and the sound is soft and rounded, absorbed by the velvet and the wood and the low ceiling. The chocolate is thick enough to leave a trace on the rim of the cup, a dark half-moon that catches the light. Coffee is the other drink of choice. It has been available in Venice since the mid-1600s, brought by Turkish traders. The coffee houses have become centers of conversation and gossip, places where news travels faster than in any newspaper. In a city that runs on secrets and information, the cafe is an essential institution. You sit and drink your chocolate and listen to the murmur of voices around you, none of them identifiable, all of them equal behind their mask. The mirrors reflect your own mask back at you from several angles. The white face, the dark eye holes, the tricorn hat. You are one of 100 identical figures in this room, and yet you are entirely yourself behind the disguise. This is the paradox of the bauta. It erases your public identity, but it does not change who you are inside. If anything, the anonymity makes you more aware of your own thoughts, your own breathing, the quiet interior life that persists behind any face. You finish the chocolate and set the cup down gently on the marble table. The warmth has settled into your body. Your hands are no longer cold. The fog outside the windows has thickened, pressing against the glass like something alive. Inside, the candles burn steadily, their flames reflected endlessly in the mirrored walls. You could stay here until midnight, but the piazza is calling, and you want to be outside when the great bell rings. You leave Café Florian and step back under the arcade. The piazza seems even more crowded now as the hour grows later. People are streaming in from every call in Sottoportego, filling the vast space. The torches burn brighter against the deepening fog, their flames reflected in the wet stones. The noise has risen. More music, more voices, more laughter. The energy of a city that knows its celebration is almost over. You walk along the arcade toward the basilica, passing under arch after arch. Each arch frames a different view of the piazza. The crowd shifting. A group of dancers in elaborate costumes. A juggler with torches, the flames spinning in quick circles. A man on stilts, towering above the crowd, his long coat trailing like a curtain. Each scene appears and disappears as you walk, framed, and then released by the steady rhythm of the arches. Fireworks burst over the bacino, the basin of water beyond the piazzetta. The light appears first, a bright flower of orange and gold blooming against the fog, and then the sound reaches you a moment later, a deep thump that you feel in your chest. The crowd cheers. Pigeons erupt from the roofline of the Procuratie, hundreds of them, dark shapes wheeling against the glow. They circle the piazza in a panicked cloud and then settle again, one by one, on the ledges and cornices. You reach the end of the arcade and step into the piazzetta, the smaller square that opens between the Doge's palace and the Biblioteca Marciana toward the water. Two tall columns stand at the waterfront, one topped with the winged lion of St. Mark, the other with a statue of St. Theodore standing on a crocodile. Between them, the lagoon stretches out, dark and vast, its surface broken by the lights of boats. The Doge's palace is to your right. Its facade a masterpiece of Venetian Gothic. The ground floor is an open arcade of pointed arches. Above it, a loggia of more delicate arches, doubled, creates a lace-like screen of white Istrian stone. And above that, the pink and white diamond pattern of the upper wall glows softly in the torchlight. The palace is both fortress and fantasy, power dressed in beauty. You turn back toward the piazza. The campanile looms overhead, its brick shaft disappearing into the fog. You tilt your head back and try to see the top, but there is only gray. The bell is up there somewhere, waiting. The Marangona. It once rang to signal the start and end of the working day for the Marangoni, the shipbuilders at the arsenal. Tonight it will signal something else, the end of Carnival, the beginning of Lent, the last moment of freedom before 40 days of penance. You find a place in the piazza, near the center, and stand still. The crowd moves around you like water around a stone. You are patient. There is time. The fog is thick now, muffling the torchlight to a soft golden glow. The basilica is a dark shape at the end of the piazza, its mosaics catching occasional flickers of reflected flame. The domes are invisible. The horses are invisible. Only the lower facade remains, a wall of gold and shadow. Venice has been celebrating Carnival for more than 500 years. The first recorded mention dates from 1068, a document granting the citizens the right to public festivities before Lent. Since then, it has grown and changed, been banned and revived, expanded and contracted, but the essence remains the same. A time outside of time, a pause in the social order, a city of masks agreeing for a few months each year to forget who everyone is. The Republic of Venice itself is over 1,000 years old. It was founded according to tradition when refugees from the mainland fled the barbarian invasions and settled on the mudflats and islands of the lagoon. They built a city where no city should be, on water, on wooden piles, on determination. They became traders, sailors, empire builders. They grew rich and powerful and beautiful. And now, slowly, they are declining. But the beauty remains, and the masks, and the fog. The minutes pass. You stand in the piazza, breathing slowly, feeling the cold air through the mask, the warm exhalation pooling against your chin. The noise of the crowd has settled into a steady murmur, punctuated by occasional bursts of music or laughter or the distant crack of fireworks. Your body is still. Your feet are planted on the damp stone. You are not tired. You are not cold. You are simply present, waiting. A light rain begins to fall. It is barely more than mist, a fine drizzle that you feel on the back of your hands, on the brim of your tricorn hat. The droplets are tiny and cold. They catch the torchlight as they fall, turning the air into a curtain of faint golden sparks. The crowd does not retreat. No one opens an umbrella. The rain is simply another layer of the evening, another texture to add to the fog and the music and the light. You think about the morning. Tomorrow is Ash Wednesday. The masks will be put away. The tabaro will be folded and stored in the chest. The churches will be full of people receiving ashes on their foreheads. The priest's thumb marking a dark cross on each brow. Remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return. Lent will begin. 40 days of fasting and prayer and reflection. The theaters will close. The music will stop. The city will grow quiet. But that is tomorrow. Tonight the piazza is full. The torches are burning. The masks are on, and Venice is itself, which is to say, it is a dream made solid. A city built on water, decorated with gold, populated by ghosts and strangers, and the same people you see every day, made unfamiliar by a few inches of papier-mâché. It is magnificent and melancholy, joyful and doomed, ancient and alive. It is Venice, and there is nowhere else like it. The crowd begins to shift. A murmur runs through the piazza, a ripple of awareness. People turn toward the campanile, looking upward into the fog. The hour is approaching. You can feel it in the way the conversations grow quieter. the way the music from the orchestras begins to slow. The city is holding its breath. Somewhere beyond the fog, the clock on the Torre dell'Orologio is counting down the minutes. The clock tower stands at the entrance to the Merceria, the main shopping street that leads to the Rialto. Its face shows the hours, the phases of the moon, the position of the sun among the zodiac signs. At the top, two bronze figures, the Mori, strike a great bell with their hammers on the hour. But tonight, it is the Marangona you are listening for. The orchestras have stopped playing. The drums are silent. The fireworks have paused. The piazza is quieter now than it has been all evening, a profound, expectant hush settling over the crowd. Thousands of white masks turned upward, toward the invisible top of the campanile. Thousands of held breaths. The fog presses down, thick and luminous with reflected torchlight. The silence is enormous. You stand among them, one mask among thousands, your face tilted up, your breath warm inside the bauta. The rain has stopped. The fog hangs motionless. The torches burn without flickering. Everything is suspended, waiting for the single sound that will break the spell and end the night. And then it comes. The great bell of the Marangona strikes midnight. The first note falls from the invisible tower like a stone dropped into still water. It is deep and resonant, filling the piazza, filling the calle, filling the canals, filling the fog itself. It vibrates in your chest, in your teeth, in the soles of your feet on the stone. It is the oldest sound in Venice, the voice of the city itself, speaking from the clouds. The second stroke follows, and the third, and the fourth. Each one hangs in the air for a long moment before the next arrives. The crowd counts in silence. 5, 6, 7. The bell is unhurried. It has rung at midnight on the last night of Carnival for hundreds of years, and it takes its time. 8, 9, 10. The sound does not fade between strokes. It accumulates, each note layering over the ghost of the last. 11. The piazza is perfectly still. Not a voice, not a footstep, not a breath. 12. The last stroke of midnight rings out and holds, sustained by the fog, echoing off the facades of the Procuratie, off the domes of the basilica, off the surface of the water in the bacino. It seems to last forever, that final note, a single sound containing the whole of Carnival, the whole of the year, the whole of Venice. And then slowly it begins to fade. The bronze voice softens, thins, and dissolves into the night. Silence. And then, all at once, the masks come off. A great rustling sound sweeps through the piazza, the sound of 10,000 hands reaching up to remove 10,000 disguises. The white faces lift away, and beneath them, the real faces appear. Flushed, smiling, blinking, suddenly visible, suddenly known. The anonymity is over, Carnival is over. The city is itself again, naked and recognized. A roar goes up from the crowd. It is a sound of joy and release and sadness, all mixed together. People embrace. Strangers become neighbors again. Lovers see each other's faces for the first time tonight and laugh. The sound rolls across the piazza like a wave, bouncing off the basilica and returning, doubled. Then the orchestras begin to play again. One last song, and the singing starts, and the piazza is alive with voices. You lift your own mask. The cool air touches your face, your cheeks, your forehead. It feels strange and fresh after hours behind the papier-mâché. Your skin tingles. You hold the mask at your side, this white face that was your face for the evening, and you look at it. The eye holes stare back at you, empty now, just a shell. Tomorrow it will go back in the chest. But for now, you hold it, and you feel the weight of everything it represented. The crowd is beginning to thin at the edges. Some are heading home through the calle, carrying their masks, their footsteps echoing in the narrow streets. Others stay, unwilling to let the night end, dancing and singing in the fog. The torches are burning lower. Some have gone out, leaving dark gaps in the ring of light around the piazza. The fog is very thick now, softening everything to a golden blur. You begin to walk slowly back through the piazza. Your feet know the way home. Through the piazzetta, past the two columns, and then into the calle of San Marco, retracing your steps. The crowd moves with you, a slow river of unmasked faces flowing homeward through the labyrinth. The conversations are quieter now, tired and gentle. Tomorrow is Lent, tomorrow is Ashes, but that is still hours away, and the walk home is long enough to hold everything. The calle are emptying. Your footsteps echo more clearly now, a steady rhythm on the stone. The fog wraps around you, close and soft. The lanterns in their wall brackets have burned low, their flames small and orange, barely holding back the dark. The city is settling, the music has faded to nothing, even the bells are quiet. The only sound is your feet and the distant lap of water in the canals. You pass through a sottoportego and emerge onto a fondamenta. The canal beside you is black and still, reflecting a single lantern in a long, wavering line of gold. A gondola is moored nearby, its hull gleaming with moisture, its ferro pointing forward into the fog like the prow of some sleeping creature. The gondolier has gone home. The boat rocks gently on its mooring, a slow lulling motion, side to side, side to side. A cat appears from the shadows, lean and silent, and walks beside you for a few paces before vanishing into a doorway. The city belongs to the cats now, and to the fog, and to the water. The human noise has drained away, leaving only the deep, patient sounds that were here before Carnival and will be hereafter. The creak of timber, the drip of moisture from a balcony, the whisper of water against stone. A fine mist is falling now, not quite rain, just a thickening of the fog into something you can feel on your face. It beads on your eyelashes, it darkens the shoulders of your tabaro, one shade deeper. The fondamenta stretches ahead, perfectly empty, the wet stones gleaming like polished marble under the last of the lantern light. Somewhere to your left, behind a shuttered window, a clock ticks. The sound carries clearly in the silence, steady and patient, counting out the small hours with no one listening. You walk on, and the ticking fades behind you, replaced by the soft, rhythmic pad of your own footsteps on the damp stone. You cross the Grand Canal again on the traghetto. The service runs all night on Carnival, but you are the only passenger for this crossing. The two gondoliers row in silence, their oars groaning softly in the forecole. The water is perfectly still, like black glass. The palazzi on either side are dark now, their parties over, their windows unlit. The canal is a corridor of shadow and silence, and the gondola moves through it like a thought passing through a sleeping mind. On the far side, Dorsoduro receives you back. The streets here are familiar, the turnings known. You walk without thinking, your body navigating the labyrinth by memory. The mask hangs at your side, held loosely in one hand. The tabaro is damp with fog and fine rain. Your breath makes small clouds in the cold air, visible now that the mask is off. The night is very late and very still. You pass the squero dark and quiet, the half-finished gondola a shadow among shadows. You pass the fondamenta where the brazier burned, now cold, the orange peel reduced to ash. You pass the Ponte dei Pugni, the marble footprints invisible in the darkness. Each landmark is a memory of the evening, already beginning to soften and blur, like the fog softening the edges of the buildings. Campo Santa Margherita is empty. The musicians have packed up and gone. The torches have burned out. The Campo is a wide, dark space, the fog sitting on it like a gray blanket. A single lantern still burns near the old church, casting a small circle of light on the wet stones. Your footsteps cross the Campo slowly, each one a quiet tap in the silence. The call to your palazzo is just ahead. You turn into it, feeling the walls close around you like a familiar embrace. The sottoportico, the narrow passage, the small courtyard, the front door. You fit the iron key into the lock and turn it. The mechanism clicks, heavy and certain. You push the door open and step inside. The staircase is dark. You climb slowly, one hand on the wall, feeling the smooth stone under your fingertips. One flight, then two, then three. Your door. Another key, another lock. You step inside, and the apartment receives you with its familiar smells. The cold fireplace, the wooden furniture, the faint scent of rosemary from the balcony pots. You set the mask on the wooden chest. You drape the tabaro over the chair. You remove the tricorn hat and place it beside the mask. The costume of Carnival is complete, laid out like the shed skin of some elegant, anonymous creature. Tomorrow, you will put it all away, but tonight you leave it where it lies. You cross to the window and open the shutter. The fog fills the view, thick and luminous, carrying the last reflected light of the torches. The canal below is invisible, but you can hear it. The soft, constant murmur of water against stone. Somewhere far away, a single bell rings. Not the marangona, something smaller, quieter. A parish church marking the hour. The sound drifts through the fog and fades. The air from the window is cold and damp and clean. You breathe it in, slowly, deeply. The night is over. Carnival is over. The masks are off, and Lent has begun. The city is settling into sleep, sinking into its foundations, resting on its forest of wooden piles in the lagoon mud. The water laps gently at the steps. The fog holds everything in a soft gray embrace. You close the shutter. The room is dark and quiet. You lie down, and the bed receives you, cool sheets warming slowly to the shape of your body. The sounds of the apartment settle around you. The creak of old timber, the tick of cooling stone, the distant, ever-present whisper of water in the canal below. Your eyes close. Behind them, the evening replays in fragments, the white masks in the torchlight, the music drifting across Campo Santa Margherita, the marble footprints on the bridge, the smell of pitch at the squero, the traghetto crossing the dark canal, the golden haze of the piazza, the bell striking 12, the masks coming off. All of it softening, blurring, dissolving into the fog of sleep. Venice rests. The fog rests. The water rests. And you rest with them, held by the city, held by the night, held by the slow, patient rhythm of the lagoon breathing against the stone. Sleep comes easily. It has been coming all evening, carried on the music and the fog and the steady sound of your footsteps on the ancient paving stones. Now it is here. The canals are quiet. The masks are put away. The last torch has gone out. There is only the fog and the water and the deep, dreamless dark. You are asleep in Venice in the year 1750 on the first morning of Lent, and there is nowhere else you need to be. The great bell has tolled, the masks are off, and Carnival is over. The fog has wrapped the city in silence, and the canals are still. You have walked from Dorsoduro to Piazza San Marco and back again through the last hours of a tradition 500 years old. Now there is only rest. Let the fog hold you. Let the water carry you into sleep. This episode was produced by The Long Road. Sleep well, good night.